But I am also being joined by Linda Granstien from Voice of America from Jerusalem. She's joining us live on the broadcast. Thank you so much, Linda, for joining us here on NDTV.
Sure. Thank you.
What can you tell us? What is the situation on the ground in Israel? Have there been any reports of casualties?
Well, first of all, Israel just opened its airspace a few minutes ago after it was closed for 7 hours. So that seems to be an indication that Israel believes that at least this immediate attack is over. There was only one serious casualty, a young Bedouin girl in the south of Israel who was severely injured and is currently being operated on in the hospital. And then about another dozen people who were either very lightly injured or who were injured from shock on their way to bomb shelters. The newer homes in Israel, by the way, every apartment is built with a bomb shelter in the apartment. So you just basically go to your bomb shelter that is in your house. Older apartments do not have bomb shelters in the apartments. They have them in the building. And among the Bedouin community, especially who live in tents and other kinds of places, there's no shelters at all. But Israel's missile system has been very successful, as your reporter just said, in shooting these down.
Right, absolutely. And also, did U.S. support in intercepting the drones and missiles coming from Iran towards Israel?
Yes, both the U.S. and also from Jordan. So apparently at least 100 of the missiles were shot down by the U.S. and the U.K. A certain number was shot down by Jordan. And then Israel shot down the ones that got through, probably most likely the shorter range. But the booms were really quite loud. And this little girl that I mentioned who was injured, she was injured from shrapnel, not from a direct hit. And now, of course, the question is, what is the Israeli response going to be? Privately, the Biden administration has told Israeli officials that they would prefer that Israel not respond. They're obviously in close consultations. This was, by the way, a Iranian response to an Israeli attack on April 1st in Syria that killed 7 senior members of the Iran Revolutionary Council, including the most senior general in Syria.
This is the first ever direct attack that took place on Israel from Iran, we see. After, as you've pointed out, the consulate that was attacked in Damascus on April 1st. But as you've rightly mentioned, U.S. has also asked, Israel not to retaliate. But in the event, if that happens, we do understand there are fears of a regional war also, a major escalation also that is being feared. What happens then?
Well, that's the question. I mean, it comes as Israel and Hamas are still embroiled in a conflict that's now more than 6 months old. It's gone from there's still Israeli hostages in Gaza. Reports from Israel say that Hamas turned down the latest deal for a hostage release and a ceasefire. Hamas, of course, is a proxy of Iran. Hezbollah in South Lebanon is a proxy of Iran. And until now, while there has been a lot of conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, with dozens of Hezbollah operatives killed, several Israelis killed by things from Lebanon, it has not been an all-out war. So if there really is a regional escalation, then you're talking about an Israeli war with Iran, with Hezbollah. Israel says it is prepared for that. Israel has long had plans to strike Iran's nuclear capabilities. So it's really not clear whether this is going to kind of settle down completely, whether Israel will do some response that falls short of an all-out war, or whether it will go to a complete regional war.
Linda, help us also understand, these tensions have been simmering since some time now. And the attack on the consulate that took place in Damascus on April 1st, that also has been seen as an attack by Israel in a big way, in the sense that was, we would say that was also not expected. And Iran is saying that it has acted in self-defense and the matter be concluded now. But that is something that doesn't look like that's going to happen very soon. But help us understand, put this in context, the kind of tensions that have been simmering between Iran and Israel for decades now. And what led to this attack attack on the consulate in Syria?
Well, first of all, Israel has always said that it will strike, at people who they think are, funding Iran, funding Hezbollah. Israel has carried out hundreds of attacks on weapons convoys going through Syria and Lebanon with weapons, including Iranian weapons that were destined for Hezbollah. So yes, there have been tensions all along. There's been a cyber war between the two countries. Israel has assassinated Iranian senior officials in the past. The U.S. has assassinated Iranian senior officials. But this definitely does seem to be an escalation. Both the Israeli strike, by the way, it was not on the consulate itself. It was a building next to the consulate, which Israeli officials, are taking pains to say. At the same time, I think there is a sense that neither Israel nor Iran want an all-out war. Israel is still busy with trying to get rid of Hamas as a military power, trying to get the hostages brought back. Israel does not want a war with Hezbollah. Lebanon doesn't want a war because any Israeli-Hezbollah war would, destroy large parts of Lebanon. If you look at Gaza today, after 6 months of fighting, huge areas of Gaza have been destroyed. So I think there is a sense that everybody kind of wants to find a way to back away from this. At the same time, I don't think that Israel can let this unprecedented attack of hundreds of drones and missiles go without any kind of response in terms of Israeli deterrence. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of consultations. The UN Security Council, if the UN Security Council issues a strong condemnation, perhaps Israel can say, okay, that's enough. Perhaps there will be a cyber attack, an Israeli cyber attack on Iran. There are reports from Iran that people are, lining up at gas stations to try to get gas for their cars, assuming that there will be an Israeli response. Israel, by the way, it's the first day of the Passover vacation, and there were a lot of school trips and camps scheduled, and all of that has now been canceled, as well as no gatherings of over 1,000 people.